I'm Clara, 32, and until recently, I thought I had a handle on things. Successful career, own place, a decent enough social life. But my family, that's always been a minefield. My parents, especially my mother, Evelyn, have always been difficult. I've spent my entire life trying to meet their impossibly high standards, bending over backward to please them. And yet, no matter what I do, it's never enough. My brother Daniel, he's always been the golden child. Athletic, charming, the kind of guy everyone instantly likes. Me? I was always too sensitive, too emotional, too much of a dreamer. The other day, I was grabbing a latte at the Daily Grind before heading into work. My phone buzzed. I absent-mindedly pulled it out, expecting another work email or a reminder about that dreaded quarterly report. The name on the screen made my stomach clench. It was my mother. Now I have a specific ringtone set for both my parents, and the ringtone is the most unpleasant music I could find. Sounds weird, but they're not people you look forward to hearing from. I hesitated, staring at the screen. Our relationship is strained, to put it mildly. Too many years of unspoken resentments, subtle digs, and the constant feeling that I'm somehow failing them. I took a deep breath and swiped to open the message, and that's when my world tilted. The message read, "She's such a pathetic disappointment. She embarrasses the family. I can't believe we have to keep pretending she's successful when she's nothing but a burden." My blood turned to ice. My breath hitched in my throat. I stared at the words, my hands starting to shake. It took a moment for my brain to process what I had just read. This wasn't meant for me. This was about me. Before I could even formulate a response, 3 little dots appeared at the bottom of the screen. Evelyn was typing again. Then came the follow-up text. "Oh, sorry, honey, that wasn't meant for you, just ignore it." Ignore it? My face burned. Ignore the fact that my own mother thinks I'm a pathetic embarrassment? Ignore the fact that she's been trashing me behind my back? I was so stunned, I didn't even realize the barista was asking for my order. The words felt stuck in my throat. I just turned on my heel and walked out. I had to get out of there. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I should have known. Deep down, I think I always did. My parents have never exactly made a secret of the fact that I'm a disappointment. When I was younger, it was about my grades. Daniel was the valedictorian, the star athlete. I just wasn't. When I got older, it became about my choices. I built a successful career in finance, but in my parents' eyes, I'm still the black sheep. Why? Because I'm not married, because I don't have kids, because I've chosen a life that doesn't fit their narrow, traditional mold. The irony? I've been paying their mortgage for the last 4 years. Ever since Dad Richard lost his job, they've been struggling. I stepped in without hesitation. I took on extra projects at work, cut back on my own expenses, and wired them money every month without fail. And yet, here I am, a pathetic disappointment. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, replaying the message over and over in my head. Each time I saw those words, my stomach twisted. By the time I got home, something inside me had hardened. For years, I'd given and given, desperately hoping that one day I would be enough for them. But the truth was staring me right in the face. I never would be. No matter how much I sacrificed, no matter how much I helped, it would never change. And suddenly I was done. Done trying, done begging for their approval, done being the family ATM while they stabbed me in the back. It was time for a little surprise. I didn't respond to Evelyn's message. What was there to say? "Hey Mom, thanks for calling me pathetic. Oh, and by the way, you're welcome for the thousands of dollars I've been sending you." Instead, I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone screen, feeling something inside me shift. I'd spent years twisting myself into knots to earn my parents' love. I'd tried being the perfect daughter, the successful career woman, the dutiful child who bailed them out of financial ruin without so much as a thank you in return. But now, I saw the truth. They didn't respect me, they never had. I was a convenience, a wallet, a source of income that they could exploit while mocking me behind my back. Not anymore. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a plan started forming in my mind. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. I was going to hit them where it hurt. It was time to remind them exactly who had been keeping a roof over their heads. The next morning, I made the first move. I pulled up my banking app and navigated to the automatic transfers I had set up for my parents' mortgage payments. With one tap, I canceled them. Just like that, I was free. No more wiring money to people who saw me as an embarrassment. No more sacrificing my own comfort for parents who treated me like I was disposable. The next step, making sure they understood exactly what was happening. I didn't bother calling. Instead, I sent a short, polite text. Me, "Hey Mom, I saw your message. No need to explain, I get it. I wouldn't want to embarrass the family any further, so I'll be stepping back. Since I'm such a disappointment, you won't have to worry about my financial support anymore. Hope Daniel can pick up where I left off. Best of luck." Then I put my phone on silent and went about my day. I didn't have to wait long for the reaction. By noon, my phone had blown up with missed calls. Mom, Dad, even Daniel. They all tried to reach me one after another as if my silence was some kind of mistake. Then the messages started coming. Mom, "Clara, don't be dramatic. You're misinterpreting what I meant." Dad, "This is childish. Call your mother back." Mom, "You don't understand. We need that money. You can't just cut us off like this." Mom, "Clara, pick up the phone." I didn't. Instead, I sat at my desk at work, sipping my coffee, feeling a kind of satisfaction I had never known before. For the first time in my life, I had the upper hand. By the time I got home, my voicemail was full. My mother's voice was shrill with barely contained fury. Mom, VM, "Clara, what is wrong with you? After everything we've done for you, you're just going to abandon us. You think you're too good for your family now? Everything they'd done for me." That was rich. I was still debating whether I should even respond when my phone lit up with a call from Daniel. Unlike my parents, my brother and I had a complicated but somewhat civil relationship. He wasn't exactly an ally, but he also wasn't openly cruel like Mom and Dad. I hesitated, then answered. "Clara," he sighed, as if this whole situation was exhausting for him. "What the hell is going on? Mom's losing her mind, Dad's furious. You're really going to cut them off like this?" "Did she tell you why?" I asked flatly. "She said you were upset over some text." I let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, I see. Some text, Daniel?" He groaned. "Come on, you know how she is. She didn't mean it like that. You're making this bigger than it needs to be." My grip tightened on my phone. "Tell me something, Daniel. When was the last time you sent them a dime?" Silence. "That's what I thought. For 4 years, I've been the one keeping them afloat, and behind my back, they call me pathetic? They say I embarrass them? And you think I'm making this bigger than it needs to be?" More silence, then a sigh. "Look, can you at least come over? They want to talk." I exhaled slowly, already knowing where this was going. They didn't want to apologize. They didn't want to make things right. They wanted me to change my mind. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to face them. "I'll be there tomorrow," I said, my voice calm. "But Daniel, tell them one thing for me." "What?" I smiled to myself. "Tell them I'm not coming to beg for their approval. I'm coming to let them know exactly what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you." Tomorrow they would learn a lesson they'd never forget. "Okay, so last time I left you all hanging, I was about to walk into the lion's den, my parents' house. The house I was paying for. It felt like stepping into a trap, but I was done running, done hiding. The next evening I found myself standing in front of their house. It looked the same as ever. The neatly trimmed hedges, the porch light casting a warm glow, the same welcome mat that had greeted me since childhood. But tonight, this place didn't feel like home. It felt like a battlefield. I wasn't here as the obedient daughter, desperate for approval. I was here to deliver a reality check. Taking a deep breath, I squared my shoulders and rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door flew open, and there she was, Evelyn. My mother. Her face was tight with forced concern, but her eyes held something else. Anger, frustration, panic. "Clara," she said, her voice sugary sweet but strained at the edges. "Finally, come in." I stepped inside. My heels clicked against the polished hardwood floor. I refused to take off my coat. I wasn't planning on staying. Richard, my father, was already seated in his usual armchair, arms crossed, jaw tight. Daniel was leaning against the wall, his hands in his pockets, watching everything unfold. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I didn't sit. Evelyn shut the door behind me, then let out a dramatic sigh. "Clara, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this little stunt of yours." I held up a hand, cutting her off. "Cut the act, Mom. We both know why I'm here." Her mouth opened and closed, clearly not expecting me to be this direct. Richard shifted in his chair, letting out an annoyed huff. "All right," he grumbled. "Let's just get to it. Are you going to fix this mess or not?" I let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, you mean your mess? The mortgage payments." Richard's face darkened, but I wasn't done. Because you see, I don't really see how this is my problem anymore, especially considering that, according to Mom, I'm nothing but a pathetic disappointment. Evelyn flinched. Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. That was a misunderstanding, she said quickly. I didn't mean it like that. I crossed my arms. Oh, really? How exactly did you mean it? A beat of silence. Then, as expected, she switched tactics. Sweetheart, she cooed, stepping closer, placing a hand on my arm. We're family. Families say things they don't mean sometimes. But we need to move past this. We need to support each other. My stomach twisted. Support each other? I had given up vacations, skipped out on luxuries, taken on extra work just to keep them afloat. And now suddenly, they wanted to talk about supporting each other? I pulled my arm away. You're unbelievable. Evelyn's expression soured. Clara, be reasonable. We counted on that money. We need it. I tilted my head. And that's my problem because, Richard snapped, because we're your parents, damn it. After all we've done for you. I blinked. All you've done for me? The words came out so softly, but they were laced with venom. I took a slow step forward, staring my father dead in the eyes. Tell me, Dad, I said, my voice even. What exactly have you done for me? His jaw twitched. Evelyn shifted uncomfortably. We raised you, Richard said. Fed you, put a roof over your head. I continued. Congratulations, that's the bare minimum of what a parent is supposed to do. Daniel let out a breath. He knew I was right. I turned to Evelyn. And you? Did you ever once tell me you were proud of me? Did you ever support my choices? No. You belittled them. You belittled me. And now that you've run out of money, you expect me to come running? Evelyn's face twisted into a forced smile. Clara, honey, we didn't mean... I cut her off. You meant every word. Silence, and then I delivered the final blow. I'm selling the house. The room erupted. Evelyn's eyes bulged. Richard jumped to his feet, rage radiating off him in waves. You can't do that! Evelyn shrieked. This is our home! I folded my arms. No, Mom, it's my home. I've been paying the mortgage. The title is in my name. Legally, it's mine. Daniel muttered, oh shit, under his breath. Richard's face turned red. You ungrateful little... I'm not ungrateful, I interrupted, my voice cold. I'm just done. You can't insult me, mock me behind my back, and then still expect me to fund your lifestyle. That ends today. Evelyn's breathing was ragged. Where are we supposed to go? We don't have savings. We don't have... I shrugged. Not my problem. Her face twisted with betrayal, as if I were the villain here. And maybe in their eyes I was, but I didn't care. Richard shook his head. You'd really throw us out? Your own family? I exhaled through my nose. You threw me out first. Not physically maybe, but emotionally. You made it very clear how little I meant to you. Daniel, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke. Clara, you don't have to do this. I turned to him. Would you help them? He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I had my answer. I thought so, I murmured. Evelyn started crying, loud, dramatic sobs, as if that would somehow make me forget everything she had done. Richard just shook his head in disgust, as if I had betrayed them. And yet I felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, just relief. I turned toward the door. You have a month before the sale is finalized, I said over my shoulder. Figure something out. Then without another word, I walked out, leaving them to deal with the mess they had made. Okay, so I walked out, feeling like I'd finally taken back control of my life. But I wasn't naive. I knew this wasn't over. My parents weren't the type to accept defeat so easily. They were plotting something. I just didn't know what. I expected chaos. I expected screaming threats and dramatic phone calls begging me to reconsider. But instead, there was silence. Eerily, unsettlingly silence. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't vibrating with Evelyn's constant demands. No guilt-tripping messages, no angry voicemails, nothing. It was almost... peaceful. A week passed, then another. I focused on my work, my apartment, my newfound peace. The weight I had been carrying for years was gone. No more endless sacrifices. No more paying for people who saw me as nothing more than a disappointment. It was almost blissful. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Evelyn. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another call. Then another. By the third one, I sighed and picked up. What? I said flatly. Clara! Evelyn's voice was thick with fake relief. Oh, thank God, sweetheart. We need to talk. I waited, saying nothing. She took my silence as permission to continue. "Honey, listen," she said, her tone syrupy. "We've been thinking and we know things got out of hand, but we're family, and families don't abandon each other." I let out a dry laugh. "Funny, considering you abandoned me the moment I didn't fit your perfect little mold." Evelyn sighed dramatically. "Clara, please, this isn't the time for grudges. We're in trouble." There it was, the real reason she was calling. "What kind of trouble?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She hesitated, then let out a shaky breath. "The bank, the house, they're moving faster than we thought. We might not have a place to go soon." I stayed silent, waiting. "And we were hoping," she continued carefully, "that maybe you'd let us stay with you. Just for a little while." I almost laughed. Almost. They really thought they could insult me, use me, and then just waltz back into my life the second they needed something? "No," I said simply. There was a long pause. Then her mask cracked. "Clara," she snapped, her voice dripping with venom, "we're your parents. After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us?" I rolled my eyes. "You mean like how you treated me? Calling me a pathetic embarrassment behind my back? Expecting me to fund your entire lives while you barely acknowledged my existence?" "That was a mistake," she shouted. "I told you it wasn't meant for you. I was just venting." "Oh, so that makes it okay," I shot back. "It's fine to trash me as long as I don't hear it?" Silence. Then, in a lower voice, she said, "Clara, we don't have anywhere else to go." I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment where the old me, the desperate-to-please daughter, would have given in. But I wasn't her anymore. I owed them nothing. "That's not my problem," I said, my voice steady. Evelyn let out a choked sound. "You can't do this to us." "I'm not doing anything to you," I corrected. "I'm just finally choosing me." And with that, I hung up. I knew they wouldn't accept that as my final answer. And I was right. The next day, I got a call from the real estate agent handling the sale of the house. "Clara," she said carefully, "your parents, they're refusing to leave." I pinched the bridge of my nose. Of course they are. "They're claiming they have squatters' rights," she continued, "and they're saying you can't legally force them out." I closed my eyes, inhaling sharply. They were really doing this. Fine. They wanted to play dirty, so would I. I spent the next few days talking to my lawyer, making sure every legal document was in place. Then, on the morning of the final walkthrough, I showed up at the house. With the police. Evelyn and Richard were waiting for me on the porch, arms crossed, faces twisted in anger. "This is ridiculous!" Richard spat as the officers approached. "You can't just throw us out like this." "Actually," I said, holding up the signed paperwork, "I can." Evelyn turned to one of the officers, her eyes pleading. "You don't understand. This is our home. We've lived here for 20 years. The officer shook his head. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you don't own this property. You've been given notice. You need to leave." Richard clenched his fists, but he knew there was nothing left to do. They had lost. I watched as they packed their last bags, their faces dark with fury and humiliation. Evelyn paused by the door, looking at me one last time. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I met her gaze, completely unfazed. "No, Mom, I won't." And I didn't. With my parents out of my life and out of my wallet, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. No more guilt, no more stress, no more endless expectations I could never meet. A few months later, I got an email from Daniel. "Clara," it read, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say, I get it now. Mom and Dad asked me for money after you cut them off. The second I said no, they turned on me too. Just like they did to you. I'm sorry for not having your back sooner. You were right." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Took you long enough?" And that was that. I had walked away, and I had never looked back, because sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones you need to leave behind. It had been 6 months since I'd seen or spoken to my parents. In those 6 months, something strange happened. I began to breathe again. The weight of years spent trying to win their approval, to fix their mistakes, to shoulder their burdens. It was all gone. It felt like waking up from a nightmare I didn't even know I was living. I was finally living for me. I woke up every morning without the gnawing anxiety that I would get a call from Evelyn about some new emergency, some new crisis. My bank account didn't feel like a never-ending drain. and I no longer feared walking into a family gathering where I would be judged, criticized, or overlooked. I had finally found peace. One evening, as I was relaxing in my apartment after work, my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number. When I answered, a soft voice came through the receiver. "Clara, it's me, Daniel." My heart skipped a beat. It had been months since we'd last spoken. The bitterness between us had run deep when I cut off our parents. We hadn't completely fallen out, but there was a definite chill. Daniel had been silent in the background, watching everything unfold, and I wasn't surprised when he chose to side with Evelyn and Richard, at least initially. But now his voice was softer, almost regretful. "Hey," I said cautiously. "What's up?" I wanted to apologize," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I've seen how Mom and Dad have treated you, and I know I didn't step up when I should have." I took a deep breath. I didn't know what to say. The old me would have jumped at the chance to forgive him, to heal that rift, but I wasn't the old me anymore. I had learned that forgiveness had to be earned. "I appreciate you saying that," I responded, my voice calm but firm. "But it's not just about them, it's about the fact that you stood by and let me take the fall. Let me carry everything even when you knew it was wrong." He was quiet for a moment, then spoke again, this time with a hint of hesitation. "You're right, I messed up. I should have supported you, but I'm trying to make things right. And I just wanted you to know, I get it now, I see you, I always should have." There it was, the apology. But the truth was, I had moved on. I had forgiven him, but I wasn't going to forget how things had been. People didn't just get a free pass for years of silence. "Daniel, I'm glad you understand," I said, my voice steady. "But that's the thing, you can't just come in now and act like everything's fine. I've moved on from this. I've learned how to live without being weighed down by them." He sighed. "I get that, but I wanted you to know that I'm here if you need me. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." I smiled to myself, the weight of the conversation finally lifting. "I appreciate that," I said softly, "but I've got my own life now. I'm doing okay. I'm doing more than okay." Daniel was quiet for a moment, as if processing my words. Then he spoke again, more softly than before. "You're strong, Clara, you always were." It was a strange feeling hearing him say that. And for the first time, I realized something. I didn't need him to see me. I didn't need his validation. I had found my strength on my own. "Well," I said, the tension easing in my chest, "I hope things work out for you, but just remember, I won't be the one to fix it, not anymore." The months continued to pass, and life, in all its complexity, kept moving forward. I threw myself into my work, focusing on my career more than ever before. The restaurant business I managed was thriving, and with the opportunity to take over as CEO looming on the horizon, I couldn't afford to lose focus. And I didn't want to, because for the first time in my life, I was building something that was mine, not for anyone else, not to gain approval or validation, but because I had worked my ass off to get there, and I was damn proud of it. But still, I couldn't help but wonder, where were my parents now? Would they ever come around? Would they ever acknowledge how wrong they were? It didn't matter, because I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. One afternoon, as I was working through my emails, I got another call from an unknown number. I answered, already preparing for what I thought would be another round of guilt trips or demands. But this time, it was different. "Clara," came a shaky voice on the other end. "It's Mom." I paused. My heart raced for a moment, then I calmed myself. "What do you want, Mom?" Her voice trembled, filled with shame. "I know this is a long time coming, but I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I've been thinking about everything, and I know I've treated you terribly. And I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just need you to know that I'm sorry. For all of it. For everything." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, sorrow, but no anger, not anymore. "I'm not going to forgive you right away, Mom," I said quietly. "But I'm glad you finally understand." There was a long pause, and then very softly she said, "I love you, Clara." And for some reason, I believed her. This time, I truly did. But the best part was, I didn't need her love to validate me anymore. Forgiveness is a strange thing. For years, I had craved it, not just to give, but to receive. I had begged, whether in words or in silent actions, for my parents to acknowledge me, to see me, to love me for who I was instead of who they wanted me to be. But in the end, I had realized something. I didn't need their approval. I never did. After Evelyn's unexpected apology, I didn't rush to mend things. I didn't suddenly become the devoted daughter again, dropping everything for them. Because I had already built something better, something real. I had built a life that was mine. The restaurant business I managed was thriving. And soon after, I was officially offered the role of CEO. I signed the contract with steady hands, knowing I had earned this, not through family connections, not through obligation, but through sheer hard work and determination. And the best part? I had no one to thank but myself. A few months later, I received one final letter from my parents. It wasn't full of anger or demands. It was a quiet acceptance. "Clara," it read, "we know we can't undo what we've done. We know we failed you, and we don't expect you to forgive us overnight or maybe ever. We just wanted to say that we see you now. We understand what you did for us, and we are sorry for taking you for granted. We hope someday you might be willing to have us in your life again, but if not, we understand. Mom and Dad." I read it once, then twice, and then I let it go because this wasn't for them, this was for me. I didn't reply. I didn't send a letter back. Instead, I folded it neatly, tucked it away, and moved forward. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking behind me. I was looking ahead, to the future I had built for myself. I accepted the CEO position, and I poured my heart and soul into the company. We expanded to new cities, launched innovative menus, and created a company culture that valued its employees. I even started a mentorship program, helping young women in the industry navigate the challenges I had faced. I reconnected with old friends, traveled to places I'd always dreamed of seeing, and even started dating again. I was happy, truly happy. One sunny afternoon, about a year after everything had gone down, I got a text from Daniel. "Hey, are you free for coffee?" I hesitated for a moment. Then I replied, "Sure, where?" We met at the Daily Grind, the same coffee shop where I had received that life-altering text from Evelyn. It felt strangely symbolic. Daniel looked different. He seemed calmer, more grounded. He had lost the easy charm that had always come so naturally to him, but in its place was a genuine warmth. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, stirring his latte. "Of course," I replied. We talked for a while about his job, his life, the weather, small talk. Then he took a deep breath. "I saw Mom and Dad a few weeks ago," he said quietly. My heart clenched slightly. "They're doing okay. They're living in a small apartment. Dad's working part-time. They seem different. Humble, I guess." I nodded, saying nothing. "They asked about you," he continued. "They didn't ask for anything. They just wanted to know how you were doing. I told them about the CEO position." He smiled. They were proud, truly proud. I could see it in their eyes. I looked down at my coffee. "That's good to hear." Daniel reached across the table and gently placed his hand on mine. "Clara, I know it's not my place to say this, but I think they finally learned their lesson. They know they messed up, and they regret it deeply." I looked up at him, my eyes meeting his. "Maybe," I said softly, "but it doesn't change the past, Daniel. It doesn't erase the years of feeling like I wasn't enough." "I know," he said, squeezing my hand, "but maybe it can change the future." I thought about it for a long moment. I thought about Evelyn's tearful apology, Richard's quiet acceptance, Daniel's newfound understanding. And I thought about the life I had built for myself, a life filled with purpose, passion, and peace. And then I made a decision. Tell them I'm willing to have dinner," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Just dinner, no promises, no expectations." Daniel's face lit up. "Really?" I nodded. "Really?" The dinner was awkward, uncomfortable, but it was also healing. We talked, we listened, we shared stories. We didn't gloss over the past, but we didn't dwell on it either. We focused on the present. And maybe, just maybe, we started to build a bridge to the future. Did we become the perfect family again? No. Did we erase all the pain and resentment? Absolutely not. But we took a step, we opened a door, and that was enough. I continued to build my life, my career, my relationships. I never forgot the lessons I had learned, the pain I had endured. But I also learned the power of forgiveness, the importance of self-worth, and the beauty of creating a life that was truly, authentically mine. And as I looked out at the city skyline from my office window, I realized that the pathetic disappointment my mother had once called me was now a strong, confident, and successful woman. A woman who had finally found her voice, her strength, and her own definition of happiness.